شهر الطاعة والإيمان شهر الرحمة والغفران شهر الطاعة والإيمان شهر الرحمة والغفران
أيامك خير الأيام
يا رمضان
يا شهر صيام وقيام
يا رمضان
أيامك خير الأيام
يا رمضان
يا شهر صيام وقيام
يا رمضان.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin. Dear brothers and sisters, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah. We are discussing the story of the Pharaoh and his encounter with Nabi Musa and Nabi Harun alayhim as-salam. We're working through a passage in Ibn Arabi's magnum opus Al-Futuhat Al-Makkiyah. And we had reached this part where he said, although Allah the Exalted knew that the hearts of the arrogant have become sealed, and we described the nature of this becoming sealed in the last session, and that Pharaoh is one of the arrogant, nevertheless, deep inside his inner nature, the Pharaoh possesses destitution and humility. And so Allah's order towards speaking gently was in accordance and on a par with this intrinsic attribute and deeply inwardly buried trait within the Pharaoh, so that he does away with his outward arrogance as well as becoming outwardly subservient. As Allah has added in chapter 20 verse 44, لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى, with the hope that he be apprehensive or scared. That was the passage from Ibn Arabi. Now, here then we went into the reality of why they were ordered to speak gently. We covered that. Then we spoke that there's no futility in Allah's orders and commands, and in here, since Allah has sent two prophets to do Amr bil Ma'ruf towards the Pharaoh, it's not futile, and there's still hope that the Pharaoh will return from his evil ways. Then I read a passage from Imam Khomeini's Adab al-Salat on the inner dimensions of Amr bil Ma'ruf, and Imam also at the end said, ponder on this verse of the Holy Quran, that even towards the Pharaoh there's hope that he return. Now I want to read another passage. This is a bit more practical in nature in our daily lives, from Shahid Martyr Mutahhari, and he has written the following on Amr bil Ma'ruf, which I thought to share with you. He says, in a hadith there is mention that Amr bil Ma'ruf has three stages: that of the heart, the tongue, and the hand. Or in other words, that of thought and intentions, the heart, that of talk and explaining, the tongue, and action, the hand. Until now, we had acknowledged that the stage of the heart is tantamount to an inner boiling of rage and an internal seething, inner cursing and detestation and disclosure of ignorant prejudice. In practice, the believers of Allah's book, in practice Muslims, when they come across the three stages of Amr bil Ma'ruf, the first is that of the heart. They think it means you have to curse something, you have to hate something, you have to detest something. There's an inner rage they say you have to have in relation to someone's doing bad, someone's committing vice or sin, you have to have an inner rage. Even if you don't say anything or do anything with the hand, there must be an inner rage or internal seething in relation to that act. Now, Shaheed Mutahari has taken it to really to a new level here. It says it's as if people have this ignorant prejudice inside their hearts in relation to something. They hate that person for doing vice. They have prejudice against that person inside them. They may curse them, and so on and so forth. That was how he says people in practice act in relation to the first stage of Amr bil Ma'ruf. And that the stage of the tongue, he continues, is tantamount to dry, coarse, coercive and futile manners of advising and counselling. And that stage, assuming one doesn't succeed in the first stage, and one deems it probable to go and speak with that person and enjoin the good and forbid the evil, forbid the vice. Here, the way people commit the second stage is, he says, coercive, dry, futile. They speak in the worst ways. And they hope that that person will return. But the reality is that the reason the person doesn't return is because there's no Rahimi mercy on your part, if you remember in last night's session. Also, the manner you're speaking to that person. It's not gentle, it's not nice, it's not pleasant. And then he says this, and that the stage of the hand in practice, how we practice it, is tantamount to executing aggression and force, hitting, shutting their mouths. Look, he's saying all this is wrong. This wasn't what it meant to be. Amr bil Ma'ruf, enjoining virtue and forbidding the vice, isn't about this. This is not the way to go forward with the hand, with the tongue, with your hearts. We're not doing Amr bil Ma'ruf because we do not have this inner scaffolding, the building blocks for a successful Amr bil Ma'ruf. And the reason is we're not a manifestation of Allah's attribute of Rahim. That Rahimi name of Allah is not manifesting in us. We're not reflecting it. The fact of the matter, Shaheed Mutahari continues, however, is that the stage of the heart is that of love and affinity. You don't hate the person. You have to love the person. That person is a creature of Allah. He's committing vice, but don't hate him. Don't internally curse him. Don't have a raging attitude inside you towards him. Love him. See him as a creature of Allah. See him as doing something wrong. It may be you the next day. Don't see yourself better than him. Don't have any false prejudices against him. After all, we must first be bearers of ikhlas and love. We shouldn't be without love. We shouldn't be doing riyah. We shouldn't be being biased. We shouldn't be eaten by the dunya. Only then we can think straight. Only then we can intend straight. Secondly, the stage of the tongue entails expounding the truth in an evident manner and not enjoin things in a threatening way. One can disclose the truth via the tongue or pen in a manner that the souls digest with ease and comfort. You see? But if you were to speak in a very bad way, in a very ignorant way, Or if you were to write in a very negative way, you're not doing Amr bil Ma'ruf. Actually, you may lead to the reverse effect. And the stage of the hand is not that of hitting. It's not about hitting people, but is one of advancing in matters of virtue and taking over joyfully, doing everything it takes with your hands, active, doing things that they change their ways. Hitting is not a first course of action. That's only as a last resort. When someone is truly a threat to the community, but you have to do all these preceding courses of action before. But some people, they start the Amr bil Ma'ruf process through hitting. Yes. Now, so that was a very important passage, I think. It goes through again the inner esoteric dimensions of this injunctive duty of Amr bil Ma'ruf, enjoining the virtue, and Nahi anil Munkar, prohibiting the vice or discouraging the vice. Okay, now a question. Now I finished with that passage. Now a new issue. A question may arise here, because what we've said so far is that Allah, through the two prophets, is manifesting Amr bil Ma'ruf through the two prophets, reflecting His Rahimi mercy. And as a result of doing this, there must be some hope and potential for the Pharaoh to return. It's not the end of the story. And Allah is adamant for this to happen. He doesn't send one prophet, He sends two. He insists on it. He even sends the prophets with miracles. Someone may ask this question, that maybe the two prophets did all this to make it proof, the final proof upon the Pharaoh, so that there be no excuse in the hereafter. It's a legitimate question. In answer, we say yes, maybe. We're not against any maybes. Academically, it's a possibility. But there are other possibilities too, like the one we mentioned, that there's still hope that the Pharaoh may return. Rather than there being no hope, and then Allah through the two prophets only wants to make the proof finalized upon the Pharaoh. So he can't give any excuses in the hereafter. So maybe that was one reason, but maybe it was what we had said before, that there's still hope for him returning. That's why Allah is executing through the two prophets Amr bil Ma'ruf. So here we say that we need evidence. Such a claim needs evidence. But all the evidence rather supports the angle that we have discussed so far. Because in chapter 20 verse 44 it says, لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Allah has explicitly said that there's hope, لَعَلَّهُ, there's hope in the Pharaoh, that he become apprehensive or scared. So with that in mind, it shows that this idea of the prophets merely giving the final proof is less probable. Okay. Now, here, in relation to the verse لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى, that there's hope that the Pharaoh be apprehensive or scared, here there's an irfani principle at hand here. And this irfani principle dictates al-atiyat biqadar al-qabiliyat, that here, that which Allah bestows of His mercy, that which Allah bestows upon people, is on a par with that person or those people's potential, capacity, Allah gives on a par with your capacity. And therefore, this verse which says that the Pharaoh, there's still hope that he will return, he'll be scared and be apprehensive and as a result return. Here, this is highlighting this principle that the Pharaoh, there's still hope that he becomes apprehensive and we will give him that which he has potential for. And until now, since Allah is continuously sending the two prophets with different signs and different ways of bringing him to their side, it shows that the Pharaoh has such a potential. Otherwise all this would be futile. So the potential is still there and remains there until the very end, where Pharaoh professes his faith. We'll come to that soon, inshallah. Now, we have many traditions which show this, many narrations which show that the Pharaoh did have faith in Allah, did believe in Allah. Now, the fact that Pharaoh had belief in Allah, in later sessions, inshallah, we will show verses of the Quran that show that he had faith in Allah. These traditions of Ahlul Bayt also show this. But these traditions haven't reached the excessive number of narrations have not been reached for us to acquire certainty of the Pharaoh's faith in Allah through these narrations. There are only a few of them. But we use these traditions as buttressing factors which support the verse of the Quran, which show, or verses of the Quran, which show that actually the Pharaoh did have faith in Allah. And as we said before, when there's even one verse of the Quran which explicitly suggests something, we have certainty in relation to it, because before it's established before us the proof of the Quran and that it's definitively revealed by Allah. And therefore, when one verse says that the Pharaoh had faith, we accept it. Now I'm going to go through one hadith, one narration, which says that the Pharaoh had faith, but with one narration, if it was only this one narration, and there was no reference to the faith of the Pharaoh in the Quran, we couldn't have concluded this. The fact that it's been mentioned in the Quran, we accept that the Pharaoh had faith. But now we have the Quran and we accept it, there's no harm in going through different narrations which show that the Pharaoh did have faith in Allah. Now, here Shaykh Saduq, in one of his works, he goes through this narration. And here it reads as follows, that during the time of the Pharaoh, the river Nile had dried up. The people had come to the Pharaoh and said, "Make the Nile flow again." The Pharaoh replied, "I am not pleased with you," meaning that you're not obeying my commands. I'm not pleased with you. The people left, only to return later, for example, days later, asking, "O king, our cattle are dying because of the drought. If you don't make the Nile active, we're forced to choose a deity other than you." Deity, Elah, meaning one who you submit to, that which is submitted to. Then here we have to choose a deity other than you. The Pharaoh replied, "Go into the desert." And they went. Then the Pharaoh went into a hiding a hiding place. He went into hiding in a particular place, far from everyone, so that no one could either see or hear him. Once there in that hiding place, he knelt down onto the ground, placed one's face onto the earth, and with his index finger pointed upwards, saying, Allahumma inni kharajtu ilayka khuruj al-abd al-dhalil ila sayyidih wa inni a'lamu annaka ta'lam annahu la yaqdiru ala ijra'ihi ahadun ghayruk fa'ajrih. In a hiding place where no one could see him, no one could hear him, he prayed before Allah, saying, O my Allah, I come forth to you, the coming forth of a destitute slave. Look, dhalil, this inner destitution which we covered in the last 2 sessions is shown here too. I come forth to you, O my Allah, the coming forth of a destitute slave towards his master. And I know that you know that no one can make the Nile active again, make the river flow again, except you. So make it flow again. Then the currency of the Nile commenced, and it started flowing again like never before. And then the Pharaoh approached the people and said what he said. It's quite a long narration. So look, this narration, it shows that Pharaoh did believe in Allah. And we're going to come to a verse in a future session that also shows that. But his belief in Allah, because of the arrogance, the outer majesty that he had, he was mutakabbir on the outside. This prevented his disclosing his faith to Allah. He wasn't ready to give away all that power. Some people, they believe in Allah inside, deep inside. But during the day when they go back to their workplace, as a president, as a governor, as a counselor, that power, they can't let go that easily. Another point is that we see in the Quran, and this also works hand in hand with this narration, that the Pharaoh never said, I am Allah. The Pharaoh never said, I am Rabbul Alameen. The Pharaoh never said, I am the necessary existent. No, he said, Ana Rabbukumul A'la. I am your Rabb, your nurturer, your Lord, the Most High. Now what does Rabb mean? We'll come to that inshallah in this session. But he mentioned himself as a Rabb, or as a deity. A deity means one who is submitted to. Now, here, so he believed that he must be submitted to. He believed that he is the Rabb, and we'll explain what Rabb means. What does Rabb mean when it's translated as the nurturer or the Lord, nurturing towards what? In any case, Pharaoh believed he was the Rabb, he was the deity. He never said, I am Allah. For example, in chapter 28, verse 38, Ma alimtu lakum min ilahin ghayri. I don't know for you people a deity other than myself. And it's interesting. It doesn't say, I don't know lil alam. It doesn't say, I don't know for the whole world a deity other than me. It's only for his people. He wants the people to submit to him. Or for example, so he believes in Allah, but that arrogance doesn't allow him to disclose it. He's not ready to give away his power. He also believes in the messengership of Nabi Musa. In one verse of the Holy Quran, I haven't written it down here, قَالَ, he said, Pharaoh said, إِنَّ الرَّسُولَكُمُ الَّذِي أُرْسِلَ إِلَيْكُمْ لَمَجْنُونَ. Your messenger who was sent to you is hidden. Verily is hidden. Majnoon means something is hidden. Now what is it that's hidden? Some people whose intellects are compromised, they sometimes call them majnoon. For example, they're infatuated in the love of someone and their intellects as a result become deactivated. They call these people majnoon, for example. Now here though, what is hidden here? So first the Pharaoh says that verily your messenger, so he believes in the messengership. He's saying your messenger. And Allah doesn't say that you're lying or you're using false words on purpose. And it says your messenger who was sent to you. So who sent the messenger? Allah sent the messenger. But this messenger who was sent to you, so he believes in messengership and Allah as the cause for messengership. He says this messenger, your messenger, la majnoon, is hidden. Meaning that Musa's messengership is hidden for you. That you're not abiding by Musa as you should be. It's hidden for you. Okay, so these are different ways of analyzing the fact that the Pharaoh had belief in Allah, believed in the messengership of Musa, but he was power hungry. And me and you are like that. When at home, at night, we may pray to Allah, but when we go out, we sin. Why do we sin? We sin because of our own interests. This is exactly the same. But with the Pharaoh, he had so much power. If we had that power too, we would have sinned. It's a definite fact, because we're fallible. Now, here we have other traditions which, if I can find them, which show the positive traits that the Pharaoh had. These positive traits led to him acquiring an inner potential. And since this inner potential to return to Allah was there, the prophets would keep on continuing, trying to bring him onto the path. One such hadith is in relation to a dialogue between Nabi Musa and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Nabi Musa says to Allah, Amhalta, O Allah, you've granted opportunity to the Pharaoh. Amhalta Fir'auna. How much opportunity? 400 sanatan wa huwa yaqulu ana rabbukumul a'la. You've granted him opportunity of making him live for 400 years, whilst he continuously said that I am your Lord, the Most High. And he's now 400 years old. And whilst وَيَجْهَدُ رُسُلَكَ وَيُكَذِّبُ بِآيَاتِكَ, and whilst he was not listening to your messengers, and he was fabricating your signs, like the miracles that they sent. فَأَوْحَى اللَّهُ تَعَالَى إِلَيْهِ. Then Allah revealed upon Musa and said, أَنَّهُ كَانَ حَسَنَ الْخُلُقِ سَهْلَ الْحِجَابِ فَأَحْبَبْتُ أَنْ أُكَافِيَهُ. He said, the Pharaoh was of good disposition. His ethical traits were good. His inner dispositions were good. He was sahl al-hijab. It was very easy to meet him, to make an appointment with him. Access to the Pharaoh, even from the common lay people of the time, they had easy access to him. They could always make an appointment to share with the Pharaoh their needs, their problems. This is a very incredible attribute. Anyway, and then the tradition says that, and I liked to compensate him for these good traits. In other traditions, it adds to these two traits. One is he had a lot of zeal towards his wife and wouldn't let people see his wife. He wouldn't bring his wife to public. Although this is seen as a good trait, but it was good for that time. Otherwise, I'm not trying to put forward the idea that you have to not let your wives be seen by others. No, that is definitely not the case. But in those days, it was a bit different, the environment. And this ethical virtue here is more on a par with the day, because it was a different environment in those days. In those days, one of the rulings of the Torah, the Old Testament, was if you disobey your parents, you have to be killed. So it was a different, environment. Another good trait which has been alluded to in the traditions in relation to the Pharaoh is he would give a lot of charity. He would feed hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands, every day. Like some people, for example, they establish a restaurant or a hotel where they feed people for free. Okay, it's a very good trait. This is something which is very noble. Pharaoh had it too. Now, that's another point. Now, Mirza Abbas Qummi, the compiler of the very well-known book of du'as known as Mafatihul Janan, he says, it's written in that book, the Mafatih, that whoever writes the expression Bismillah outside their house will be immune from destruction, all be they a kafir, a non-believer. Although here, kafir shouldn't be looked at as a canonical Sharia kafir. Rather, kafir is, even in relation to Iblis, he's called a kafir in the Quran, whilst the very Quran also shows that Iblis had faith in Allah, had faith in resurrection, but he's called a kafir. This means the kafir is, the literal definition has to be borne in mind, which is someone who's hiding something, who is inattentive to something. They're hiding something from Allah. They're not disclosing something. And this is how we have to look at kafir, not the Sharia kafir, someone who doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in the resurrection, doesn't believe in messengership, and so on and so forth. It is said, it continues here, it is said that Allah did not hasten the Pharaoh's destruction and had granted him opportunity even though he had claimed lordship, and this was because he had inscribed Bismillah outside the entrance to his palace. So on the entrance to his palace there was an inscription saying Bismillah. Look, this shows that there was this faith towards Allah, or belief in Allah. Allah had revealed to Musa, when Musa had requested the destruction of the Pharaoh to be hastened, So Musa said, "Oh Allah, hasten the destruction of the Pharaoh." Allah replied, "You're looking at his kufr, but I'm looking at that which is inscribed at his residence's door." That's another point. And in relation to this point of him saying, "Ana rabbukumul a'la," that I am your Lord, your nurturer, the Most High. Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, in his tafsir, Hafadahullah, he has written that in the preceding civilizations, like ancient Egypt, idolatry had two forms. One was pertaining to the lordship of the creative order of the cosmos, and they believed that these idols had a role vis-a-vis benefit and harm in the order of the cosmos. For example, they either created things or led to volcanoes or earthquakes happening. They had a say in relation to the creative order of the cosmos. That was one way of idolatry. Another was lordship, not of a creative type, but of a legislative form, where Rab was said to someone whose ideology leads to a community's salvation. And this is how lordship was used, the word Rab was used, with respect to the pharaohs of Egypt. So when the Pharaoh said, "I am your Lord Most High," it was lordship of a legislative type, not a creative type. And when someone is Rab in the legislative type, it means this, that, "O people, listen to me, submit to me, because the ideology I'm putting forward to you, the rules and regulations that I'm putting forward to you, will enable you to attain to salvation. So don't submit to anyone else. I will nurture you. I am your Lord. And through my ideology, through my laws, you will reach to salvation. So stick to my laws." This is what the Pharaoh meant by saying, "I am the Lord." Not that I am the creator of the sun or the earth. It wasn't anything on those lines. It wasn't a case, Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli continues, it wasn't a case that they said, "We are your creators." Rather, the pharaohs would say, "O people, the assurance of your salvation is to abide by or submit to the rules and regulations we bring forth for you. This is your deen. This is your religion." Deen means a kind of conduct, way of life. Deen. The Pharaoh is saying, "You listen to me. If you listen to me, salvation will be assured. This is your deen." In chapter 40, verse 29, Ayatollah Jawadi brings two verses now here to understand what does deen mean. The Pharaoh says, "Ma urikum illa ma ara." I won't show you save that which I see. "Wa ma ahdikum illa sabila rashad." And I don't guide you save to the way of rectitude, of rightness. So look, Pharaoh is putting forth the way of righteousness, the way of rectitude for the people. He's guiding the people. He's the legislative Rab. And this was called the deen of the people. The way that he put forward is called a deen. And he's saying, "I'm putting forward the correct way here for you." Then the Pharaoh would tell his people that Musa alayhi salam wants to destroy your deen. In chapter 40, verse 26, Pharaoh says, Inni akhafu ay yubaddila dinakum. I fear that he, Musa, will transform and change your deen, the way of life. But Pharaoh is saying, I am your legislative Lord. You have to abide by my laws. I am giving you the way to rectitude and salvation through my laws. This is your deen. I'm scared that Musa will change your deen. And so this was how Ayatollah Jawadi Amali has interpreted this. Very, very important mention here of how we have to look at the lordship of Pharaoh. Excuse me. And my final point for this session is this, that those who are living under non-Islamic guardianship today, for example, in America, in England, in Australia, and other countries ruled by people whose hands are contaminated with blood, with oppression, and so on and so forth. These people who live in such countries are abiding by and submitting to the laws and regulations of those countries, which in many instances are totally on a par with oppression, total vice. That is your deen by listening to those authorities. Your deity is the governor in those countries. Your legislative lord in reality is that deity. When it's asked, Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? You will answer, God forbid, the names such as Trump and the likes of Trump, because you abided by the laws and regulations of that country, which in many instances was total vice. This is how we have to understand deen. Today we are Bani Israel and we're abiding to a tyrant, and we are compromising our deen. And deep down we think we will reach salvation through the laws and regulations of those people. We have to take this much more seriously. It's a pity in this 70, 80, 100 years in this world. Make a difference to your lives. Change your destiny. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.